Question and answers are open. I would ask you to stand up, identify yourself, use the microphone in a clear, concise realm, state your question, and if I can't answer it, one of the many subject matter experts in the room will be happy to do so.
Sir, soldiers with stabilization on their contract right now that would like to PCS, how is that stabilization going to affect them here on Fort Lewis as far as interpost transfers?
If I understand you correctly, if you are stabilized for, say, a re-enlistment, you can send a 4187 asking to be released from that stabilization to afford you the opportunity to PCS. Does that answer your question, over?
Yes, sir, Major.
Cool.
Okay, so we have a question off of Facebook. It says, if one of our soldiers is placed on the deactivation team, then the deactivation teams are the one we talked about, where there's like 500 to 700, somewhere in that realm of soldiers that serve as our inactivation cadre here. So if a soldier is placed on the deactivation team, what happens afterwards? Needs of the Army or interpost transfer? Well, actually, the answer is both. It is a combination of the soldier's needs, wants, and desires, personal assignment history and situation. Have you been here for a year? Have you not been here? Have you been here for 3 or 4 years and now it is time to PCS? Are you in need of some NCOERs? You know, are you a sergeant that has to go to ALC or SLC or something of that nature? All of that comes into play. Our soldiers will do both. They'll both interpost transfer as well as PCS, and it'll be determined on an individual basis by what that soldier's particular needs, wants, desires, and situation happens to be. However, all moves will occur, as you heard me say, no later than 30 September, and probably a good planning factor is that they would occur a little bit sooner than that.
I was wondering, is there any way to request what brigade we go to here on post?
Absolutely. You can request it. Doesn't mean you'll get it, but you can absolutely request it.
How do we go about requesting that, sir?
That's same process as before. So the master BDR spreadsheet that we've all been working off of, in the comment section, it just has to say, hey, I would like to go to 2232 17 Fires. And if you have, for example, history with a specific battalion or brigade, then I would absolutely put that in there. Hey, I previously served there. I would like to go back there. All the more reason for us to send you back to a team that you were already a part of. Makes great sense, and I don't see any reason why we couldn't work towards getting you there. Great question.
Affect senior non-commissioned officers, junior officers, as far as their evaluations go and their duty positions. And that really relates to the professional development and how we're going to be rated amongst our peers that are in the Army, as well as our peers on the post.
Okay, good question. That same exact question occurred during the first town hall as well. So obviously that is a concern for most, if not all, of our non-commissioned officers and officers. Bottom line is, as a leader transitions from the unit, the leader will depart us with the appropriate OER, NCOER, and what we will not do is send you off with an OER or NCOER that says that you were, in the basket making provisional battalion, doing whatever. No, you will be rated up until the point you depart us. Your evaluation will state what you currently are in the unit that you currently belong. 4, 9, 2, 2, 3, whatever the case may be. Well, there will not be any provisional type stuff listed on your evaluation.
The bottom line is we're going to ensure that you leave with the required rating. I think you're confused with that March date. From that day forward, perhaps you're not going to be accounted for on the rating scheme. Is that your question?
Correct, Sergeant Major.
Just have a question about schools. If we're in transition between units, so say like the 92 Yankees are going to be bouncing around after we close out our units, and we're supposed to go to, say, WLC or something like that, are we going to be able to get those opportunities if we're like between units? So say 472nd's closed out and we're supposed to go to 212, are we still going to get the opportunity to go to schools?
Yes, absolutely. We're going to make sure you go to school. We're even trying to get those who are motivated to get that Ranger school in. But WLC easy. You go there, come back. If your unit have inactivated, you just fall under the next battalion that stood up. And we're not going to put you in a situation where you go to school and the brigade has inactivated completely. Now you got to transition to, 3-2 or 2-2. So you'll be squared away, no worries.
Okay? Okay, it says, is it true, so the question is it true that no engineers will go to Carson? The answer is, there's nothing that is written in stone, obviously, for anybody, whether you're an engineer or an intern, it doesn't matter. Bottom line is, most of the engineers we think will stay here and help stand up that new BEB and 2-2. However, some may in fact be able to go to Carson. It's all dependent on the needs of the Army, what the priorities are, and what your individual, family and career situation is. Do you even have enough time on station to be allowed to move? Do you have a skill set, in fact, that they need there? You got to remember, at Fort Carson, they're inactivating one complete brigade and reorganizing another, so they also have a good number of engineers there that are looking for jobs as well. So certainly, there is an opportunity for any of our engineers to get to Carson, but the likelihood is greater that you will stay here and go into 2-2 and reform that new BEB.
Right now, the majority of our organization has a fence code on them that's not allowing them to PCS or get any other options besides stabilization and needs of the Army. So the question is, at what point will these guys that have been on station for 24, 36, 48 months be afforded the opportunity to re-enlist for another duty station? Do we have that information at this time, or is it just going to be, when the unit allows that to happen? Because HRC doesn't seem to have an answer at this time, sir.
So I'll give you a two-part answer and then have some subject matter experts queuing. So the fence that is currently in place is in place because we asked it to be there. For A, and B, because we just redeployed, and as you know, we're not allowed soldiers. The Army policies is you cannot, we don't want to PCS soldiers until redeployment plus 90 days. But we asked for that to be extended a little bit, specifically so that we could work out every single soldier's follow-on assignment, whether it was interpost transfer, PCS, ETS, retire, whatever it may be. We wanted to get that solution set. And in fact, as you probably guessed, this is not a Raider Brigade adventure. We have the division here to help us, the Corps, and in fact this week we have folks from the Department of the Army here and ForceCom and everybody underneath them here working through the equipping portion of it. We're going through a big equipping conference. Here in another couple of weeks, HRC and the same group of folks are coming down to work the personnel aspect of it. And the intent is for us to work through all of that so we can get back to you what I already said. So by the December, January time period, almost, maybe not everybody, but the vast majority of soldiers in the Raider Brigade will know and have either in their hands orders or at least some type of indication of, Miller is interpost transferring over to 2-2 in January. Felty is PCSing to Fort Carson in July, etc. All of that is being worked, and the reason that the fence is currently in place is so we can get that solution and then release it back out to everyone. So that's yes, sir. Over here in the far front.
Hey, sir, with the majority of our soldiers moving to other brigades, is there any way you can provide us a quick snapshot of what the future holds for these other brigades that they're potentially moving to? I'll do that right now.
I'll do that right now. All right, if you're going to 2-2, you'll go to NTC in 1408. In June, there'll be an NTC rotation, 1408. It'll be a decisive action rotation. At the end of that rotation, you'll be on two different paths. One will be for operations in the Pacific as part of the Pathways Plan by General Brooks, and the other will be part of Contingency Response Force. The Army in June and July of this year will have 6 combat-ready brigades. 2 of them will come from this division, 2-2 and 3-2. There will be 6 combat brigades ready for missions in the Army. 2 will come from here. So that's if you're in 2-2. If you're in 3-2, they're going to NTC in January 1403, also for a decisive action rotation. When Colonel Baer comes out of that rotation, that brigade, in addition to being one of the 2 Stryker brigades that are part of the Contingency Response Force for overseas missions, will also be the first regionally aligned force in the Pacific. So they will do exercises like Bala-Katan, Tiger Bomb, etc., as well as support operations potentially in Korea if you're going to 3-2. If you're going to the 16th CAB, they are on deployment orders to go to Afghanistan. They will probably be the last cab, or could possibly be the last cab that goes to Afghanistan to close out Afghanistan, depending on where the elections go and what the SOFA is with Karzai, as all of you know after that. If you're going to 17th Fires Brigade, that headquarters is going to the UAE, United Arab Emirates, to provide contingency operations in the Mideast, whether it be in support of operations in Kuwait and or Syria or other contingencies. 5-3FA is deploying, as is 194 over time. So they are ready for contingency operations. If you're going to the 201st, you could go to the 109th or the 502nd. Both of those battalions will deploy, but right now only about half of those battalions, based on the DEP board, will deploy. Those of you who've been in Afghanistan know that there is a constraint on the number of personnel you can put into Afghanistan, because at the same time we're building combat power, we're also drawing down. So the president's trying to get his arms around what is going to be the right number. So as you know, every single day those DEP boards are changing. And units right now, just so you know, are getting off-ramp that were told they were going to Afghanistan, but now they're not. One example is the 14th Engineers. If you're going to the Triple Nickel, and potentially you were going to the 14th Engineers, they are off-ramp now for going for Afghanistan. The Triple Nickel will have 2 battalions, the 14th Engineers and the 864th. They will be doing contingency operations in the Pacific. So they will be part of our contingency package to support training in the Pacific. So that's what we're doing. Those are all 6 brigades. The division headquarters will still stay here. The division headquarters, by the way, as the Army draws down, is not going away. In fact, the division headquarters will ramp up. I would imagine by 2015 or 2016 we will go to 1 patch. I always get the 1 patch question. When are we going to 1 patch? Probably not till 2015, when Korea loses their brigade off the peninsula, and we start looking at what that division in Korea is going to be doing. So we'll either be patched as the 7th ID by then, or we'll be repatched the 2 ID. So if you're going to one of those brigades, there will be plenty of work for you to do, I guarantee you, both with operations in the Pacific and both with contingency operations worldwide. Also, we also have the mission to support the Global Response Force. So what I also didn't tell you is that 3-2 right now also has this mission to support the 82nd. And that right now is what 123 Infantry is doing there. So we've got a lot of things going on and a variety of other missions that are going on that DA is working itself through. But suffice it to say, if you're in the 7th ID, we've got resources right now, and we've got training dollars, and we'll be able to sustain our training here over the next year plus, while the rest of the Army continues to work through some transitional issues. So still opportunities here to train to be ready to fight. Okay, so thanks.
Profile still move, or do they stay until cleared? And I think, generally speaking, everyone's tracking. It depends on your medical condition, but in most cases, so we'll use the 2 easy ones. So you have soldiers that are in the IDES process, either the MEB or PEB portion. All of those soldiers in the January, February, March time period, we will interpost transfer to one of the other gaining units here on post. We want to get those soldiers on the team with the team members, other team members, sooner rather than later, so that we can do a positive chain of command to chain of command handoff, so that we are taking care of that soldier's individual needs, and that new team can then finish transitioning that soldiers through the IDES process.
All right, let me talk about IDES here for a minute. I'm really talking to company battery troop commanders and first sergeants. When we're going to transition a soldier from another unit that's in IDES, for example, let's make sure we're doing a couple things. If it's the MEB piece, let's make sure we're doing the right initial counseling for the MEB, we've got the right appointments transition, and we've got the right NARSUM in terms of what you need input for that soldier's NARSUM. Because what I don't want to do is I don't want to take a soldier that's got a serious medical issue and then hand him off to another unit and then start from scratch. Okay? And some of you are already in the IDES process. So it's very important we have battle handoff for our soldiers that are in the IDES process for what's in the NARSUM, the initial counseling that you're giving him, and tracking appointments. And that includes pharmaceutical issues. That includes soldiers that have certain pharmaceuticals that they're taking. Soldiers that are in the PEB piece, we need to know where you are in the PEB portion. So is it at DRAS right now? Are you waiting for your VA benefits? So there's got to be a criteria to hand off Private Lanza from 4-2 to 3-2 so that we don't put a soldier at risk from a health perspective when he or she is in the IDES process. So that's extremely important, and I'd ask you guys to think about that in terms of how you're passing that information. It is not violating HIPAA, it's making sure that the gaining unit has total situational awareness and understanding of that soldier so we can get he or she the best medical transition, and that includes ACAP. So if simultaneously you're in the IDES process, you should be doing ACAP. So we should make sure that the gaining unit knows everything about that soldier so we can transition that soldier the proper way and that the new unit doesn't have to answer a whole bunch of questions that puts a soldier at risk. Okay, so everybody tracking with me on this? It's extremely important, and you would want the same thing for one of your soldiers. So I'd ask you to think about that and make sure we've got a proper battle handoff of our soldiers. Okay, thanks.
So the other piece of that is in both categories, whether it's an IDES soldier or a temporary profile, temporary 3B or something like that. In both cases, it's a two-part answer as well. Those soldiers that we believe the current chain of command can transition through the IDES process to completion, meaning they're now Mr. Miller, who's now completed ACAP, completed the IDES process, received his VA benefits and all of that. If that can happen before the March, April, May time period, then that soldier will stay in the brigade and the current chain of command will shepherd that soldier through the process. If, however, that soldier is relatively new to the IDES system and is still in the middle of that, then we are going to have to hand that soldier off, as the CG just talked about, a good positive chain of command to chain of command with all of the nuts and bolts of that, so that that new team can then finish the transition to that soldier. And that applies to both categories. Same thing for the temporary profiles. If you're currently, injured in some fashion and you're going through physical therapy or whatever the case may be, if we can get you back to fully mission capable status by the March time period, March, April, May time, then we'll keep you and work you through that process. If it's something that's going to take a lot longer than that, then same thing. It'll be a chain of command, individual to individual, positive handoff, so that Miller gets just as much care and attention as he's going through his physical therapy as the next guy. But it's got to be that good, positive handoff from current team, Raider team, to new team, whichever one that may be.
How would we know if our EFMP packet is expired or needs to be updated? How would we get that information?
So EFMP, that's a simple matter of your soldier getting the packet, going to that chain of command, and talking with that chain of command to make sure that, yes, it's fully filled out online, and yes, sir. How would you know if yours is expired? That's my point. Is that soldier has to engage with this chain of command, who will then in turn through the S1 side of the house. They can pull that up and check it. It's a but it's all about the soldier getting engaged with the chain of command and finding the right staff member to check it for you and make sure yes it's accurate or no it's not, and then in turn start that process of updating it. But we do know we have about 68 that are inactive, that are not current in the brigade right now.